All right. Good morning, everyone. So this is fun. This is my first Zoom meeting with you guys. You guys are probably used to seeing Mike's face. So just to make sure you guys can all hear me, can I get a thumbs up from someone that we're good? You guys are good? Awesome. Thank you. Perfect. So go ahead and get started here. I'm going to move some things around on my screen. There we go. So as you guys can see, we're going to be talking about buyer representation agreements today. So definitely stay tuned through the end of the meeting because that's where we're really going to get into a little bit more about this. I'm sure that you guys are all aware of all the changes that are coming and all the fun stuff with this. So just make sure you guys are sticking around. But let's go ahead and get started. I see there's a lot of you guys on here, so that's awesome. All right. So I want to go ahead and just start with our belief system. Can I get, for today, I want to really hear about something specifically around teamwork. Does anyone have any wins or anything to share about specifically on, something that was really great for you and your business that revolved around teamwork and making things happen? Feel free to just unmute yourself and chime on in on this. Any teamwork wins? All right, not in the past week. How about another one? Does anyone else have any other wins from the belief system? Anything that they can think of from their business from the past week where you can share a win? Not so much. All right. Cool. Well, I will share a win. I would say for me on the teamwork one, and then also just success results through people. I feel like those two kind of go hand in hand. Super excited about the number of people that raised their hand and is willing to chime in on kind of sharing about your business and how you utilize your buyer representation agreements. I've had several people volunteer. I've also had several people nominate others. So definitely really awesome. I feel like that's a nice, it's a fun surprise for me to see how many people are willing to just step up and, support and share, their successes as well with the buyer representation agreements. So definitely an awesome one. All right. And hey, Carrie, there should be a video on this one for the.
I think it just needs a second to load maybe because I saw.
Okay. There it is.
There we go.
Hey everybody, how you doing? My name is John Murchison, real estate professional with Keller Williams, and I am volunteering today for our Red Day here at Ronald McDonald House.
My name is Jeremy. Today I'm volunteering at the Ronald McDonald House. This is my 12th Red Day.
Hi, I'm Satrina Young, and I'm volunteering at the Fatima Family Center. This is my 10th Red Day.
My name is Julia, and I'm volunteering at MedWish. This is my 10th Red Day and my 4th year in a row at MedWish.
Today I'm volunteering at Fatima Family Center here in the Huff neighborhood. I think this is my 15th Red Day. You have to ask Marty Emmerman about that.
Okay. I'm Jen. I'm volunteering at the YMCA today, and this is my 4th Red Day.
I'm Jamie Kostelnik. I'm volunteering at the Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging. This is my 4th Red Day.
This is our first Red Day.
And we're here volunteering at MedWish.
That's right. They put the 18 upstairs.
Hi, my name is Lindsay. I'm volunteering at MedWish today. It is my 4th Red Day, and my favorite thing about Red Day is volunteering and getting out into the community.
Not only helping out in the community, but getting to know the agents as well. The volunteers that are here that you don't normally see. So it's a great thing all the way around. Taking a break from the business and giving back and serving with some fellow agents.
Are the people and just communicating with all the residents.
Getting to spend time with our coworkers out in the field in Cleveland, giving back to our community.
My favorite thing about Red Day is actually getting to meet all the people that we volunteer for and all the communities we get to help. It's such a blast and everyone is so nice.
And I do this every year because I love hanging out with my colleagues and getting to see different places around Cleveland.
It's really just having an opportunity to get out in the community, be able to give back. I love the smiles that we're able to put on the people's faces when they see that we come out and we're really here to help.
That's awesome. So thank you all who participated for Red Day this year. It was a fun, nice and rainy day this year for it, but it was really awesome just to see how many people showed up for that. And I think that everyone had an equally great time in a different area. So thank you guys for that. Awesome. Okay, share your upcoming listings, paint the town red. Does anyone have a listing that they want to share with the group? Anything upcoming that's a really big one that you want to make sure to get out there? Go ahead and just unmute yourself if you got something.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Hello. Your first meeting, team lead meeting?
On Zoom. Yep.
Oh, right. Okay. So anyway, I have a 3-bedroom colonial in Cleveland Heights coming to the market. It would probably be, I'm sure, fixer upper, great tenant occupied. So that's going to come to the market for 75. Then I have a convenience store with a house on it coming up to the market in Bedford Heights. This week it should be live, probably Thursday, for $325.
Awesome.
4-bedroom house, and store was rented for $2,500 a month. The house rental is $975. So might have some investors or owner occupants that maybe want to become an investor.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Cool. Thank you. Anyone else?
You're welcome.
Kelsey, I have 2 listings coming up within the next couple weeks. We have one in Gates Mill. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. For 1.65, master up, master down. It's gonna be 4 bedrooms, completely remodeled. They put a whole entire second floor on the house. Gorgeous on 15 acres in Gates Mills. That's on Timber Ridge Trail. And we have one on Loyola coming up, probably in the high 2.8 X's. It's older house. Parents have passed away, kind of like grandma and grandpa's house. They're getting in the middle of fixing stuff up and ordering the point of sale.
Okay. Awesome. Congrats. That's awesome. Anyone else?
Hey, Kelsey, it's Wendy Dixon. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. We have a few renovations coming up later this month, early next month. One is in Lakewood. It's a single family home. Actually, I bought from one of Stephanie Termaines, one of our agents, buyers. It's a single family, 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath. It will be fully renovated, large master bedroom upstairs. It's in Birdtown on Quail. That one is going to be listed in the upper 200s. I don't have the exact number yet. We have one in Circle East District neighborhood, which is a new neighborhood that the Land Bank and the city of East Cleveland are working on. Beautiful homes out there. It is a large, almost 3,000 square foot, 4-bedroom, 2 full bathroom house. That one will be fully renovated. That's going to be $200,000, listed at $200,000. It's a great upcoming area. But still East Cleveland, so we understand that part of it. And then we have one in Berea. It is an 80s ranch style, but with a basement walkout. So when you look at it, it looks small from the street. It's near BW. It is a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom home, small kitchenette downstairs, full kitchen upstairs, 2 bedrooms up, one bath up, 2 bedrooms down, 1 bath down. New decks walkout. That one is going to go for the low 300s, I think. So anybody can message me or email me if they want more information.
Okay. Awesome. Lots coming our way for that. Great. Thanks, Wendy. All right. Any others before we move on?
Yes, Janet Smerdell here.
Okay.
There a new listing in Willoughby, Ohio. It's in a very nice neighborhood, Ridge Acres. It's a beautiful bungalow with a big family room that was added on, and that's going for $247,900.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? Lots of activity going on right now, which is exciting. Lots of listings. Good. All right, cool. go ahead and keep on moving. So upcoming trainings. So we have quite a few upcoming trainings coming on. You guys can see the June calendar. I know Carrie has sent that out, and that's obviously on our training calendar. You guys can take a look at. Lots of trainings, multiple per day. Check those out when you can. Right now we have our Ignite After Dark happening, and this is on Zoom every evening at 6 p.m. So you can see all the different classes and topics that they're covering right now. So that goes through the end of June. So if you're not a part of that, you can go ahead and plug into that. And then we also have this live home inspection. So this is going to be a CE, and this is going to be something that's going to be really awesome because you get to walk through an actual duplex, real life, in person with a home inspector to be able to ask questions. So if you've not signed up for this yet, definitely check this out. It's this Friday. All right. And then, yes, thank you, Alex, for letting us use your listing for this. And then we also have the Realtor Collab, which if you've been to any of our past sales meetings, you guys have heard about this already, but this is something that we're starting today. And this is going to be for any agent who has done at least 8 closings in the last 12 months. And it is going to be more around the collaborative environment. So our topics are going to be different every single month, but we're going to really hit hard onto buyers this month and talk about our buyer, our value proposition, what we do for our buyers, our systems, our processes, consultations, all that fun stuff. That's also going to coincide with our conversations around the buyer representation agreement today. So if you guys have not signed up for that yet, definitely sign up for that. And then our summer mastermind. So you guys see that this has been something we've been talking about for a little bit. If you've not signed up for this yet, definitely sign up for it. This is going to be a really awesome day. It's July 16th. We do have the VIP pass, which is going to get you lots of extra goodies and things with that if you wanted to do that. And then what I will tell you is that Sarah Reynolds is an amazing team leader at KW, and she's someone who's going to be our keynote speaker. So really awesome there. And we're also going to have a ton of really great breakout sessions with panels and all different things. So if you've not taken a look at this, sign up for it when you can, invite people to it. It's gonna be a great day. Awesome. And then we've got some partner updates. So let's go ahead and get started. America's Preferred. Can I hear from Renee? I think I saw her on here. Yep. No, is it? Let's see. Is Renee on here?
I don't see her, so we can
see
just for now to keep it moving, but
okay.
Bob's on, I'll let you know.
There we go. All right. So Janelle, I'll go ahead and go to you next.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Great job so far, Kelsey. No, it's not easy.
Thank you.
Yeah, so guys, it's the second half of the year. So taxes, so the second half of 2023 taxes are due at the beginning of July. Okay. So a lot of sellers will ask you, should I pay my taxes? Absolutely. We always encourage them to, just so they don't incur any fees or penalties. Or if it's really close to that early July, we can always pay for them at closing. Okay. So when preparing a seller net sheet or asking us to prepare a seller net sheet, if it is past July, we will assume all taxes have been paid. Okay, guys? So just something to keep you ahead of your sellers and understanding how to discuss taxes, because again, the second half of 2023 is due in July. And it's also a really good time to touch base with your cash buyers. Make sure that, hey, tax time's coming up. Make sure you pay them, because sometimes they forget.
One other thing too on that too is sometimes I've realized, we experience this, they'll still send out the tax bill to your clients. And then you always have the panicked buyer that's like, I thought this was included in my mortgage. Do I really have to pay this $3,000 or $4,000? And they freak out. So if you get to it before they reach out and have that panic, like, hey, this is just an FYI bill so that you know what your bill is going to be, but it will be taken care of through escrow. So another little fun fact. Yep. You don't realize it until you get that fun bill yourself the first time. Awesome. And then cross country. Can I go ahead and hear from cross country? I saw Sean and Don, so I don't know who's going to be chatting today.
I'll give it a shot here to start. So give you kind of a quick market update. So every month there's 3 big things that we're looking at. If there's a Fed meeting this month, which there is, that's number 1. Inflation numbers, which starts next week. So that's number 2. And then job numbers, which is this week. A few smaller reports, and the big one, first Friday of the month, is always the jobs report. So could move interest rates a little bit here or there. Rates ticked up a little bit last week, got most of that back here to start off this week. So all in all, obviously nobody's doing cartwheels about interest rates, but kind of the shock of where rates are is behind us. So kind of just rolling with the punches there. Big news, you'll see some social media stuff coming out here soon, I'm sure, but officially yesterday, the Scotsman Guide, which kind of tracks loan numbers. Well done, Don. Cross Country Mortgage is the #1 retail lender in the nation. 30 30 billion, I'm sorry, 30,510,948,601 in lending. So that's, we're pretty excited about that. I've been with this company for 8 years. We were barely on the top 25 list, if at all back then. So just to see where they've gone, this isn't all from the three of us necessarily, but it's been cool to kind of enjoying the ride here. And the big thing, obviously we couldn't do it without the partnerships we have nationwide. Keller Williams, Greater Metro, especially being a big part of that. So I just want to thank you for your partnership and our working relationship. And really the cool part about this is I get to tell people, yes, we're the #1 lender and we're local. Our corporate office obviously is here in town. Our branch is here right on Sugarland Boulevard. So working with somebody you know, like, and obviously as you've seen throughout a big part of the community with the events that we are our partners in. So just wanted to, I guess, toot our own horn, but really say thank you and just know that we're here for you. Go ahead, DJ.
Yeah, as you saw, it's Foam Finger Tuesday down at the headquarters, so that's where I got this from. But yeah, thank you to everybody for your support. We really appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
guys. Chris, do you have anything you wanted to add?
No, just thank you. Couldn't have done it without you. So appreciate you.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks, guys. All right. And then Liz is not going to be on here today. She is actually at field day with her kid. So she is a little tied up right now. They're still in school, which I thought was crazy. But so we'll get an update from her next week at our in-person meeting in River. And then Keller Home Loans, is David on here? This is the fun part about Zoom is you have to like scroll through all the faces and see if someone's here.
I'm here.
All right, perfect. There you are. Cool. Go ahead.
I'm here. I just had to get my mute off. Hello, everybody. Couple of quick things market-wise. One update that HUD just made yesterday or in the past couple days is that gift funds no longer need to be sourced. So just like conventional, now you can wire the funds directly to the title company and not have to bug the donor for their own bank statements, which kind of can drag down the process and frustrate some people. So that's a good step for FHA. Again, trying to make things easier for homeownership. As far as FHA goes, our 100% financing program, I've not found a better option out there over all the other programs out there. Our 100% program gives you, market rates without any significant adjustments, zero down. There's no income limits, no geographic restrictions. So as long as you qualify for an FHA loan, you have a minimum 600 credit score, you qualify for 100% financing. So that's a great option. You can combine that with our $800 coupon for Red Day that's still running through the end of the summer. So that takes $800 off your closing costs, and combine that with zero down.
Awesome. Great stuff. Thanks, David.
Yep.
Cool. So now we're actually getting to the fun stuff a little bit early, which is exciting. So today, I wanted to chat with you guys about the buyer representation agreements. As you know, there's been all of this chatter around the NAR settlement, everything that's been going on. And I think that there's been a lot of, what's it going to be like? What's it going to do? How's this going to work? And what we're here to do is to try to give you guys the resources and actually give you guys our new buyer rep agreement ahead of time before this is going to become mandatory for the MLS with the changes that they're making. And then also we may not see like the actual changes happening until August, September, depending on how things kind of shake out. But for us on our side of things, we are going to be rolling out a new buyer rep agreement by the end of this week. So this is something that has been in the works for some time with our legal department and sitting down with both Ginter and other agent representatives to kind of help us go through this together and make sure that it is the best thing for you as an agent and also the best thing for our clients and our buyers. We sat down multiple times and talked through this. I was excited to be a part of this conversation. My background is I've used buyer rep agreements since 2016. So for about the past 8 years. So this is not really anything new to me and my business. So I was excited to see how we're going to be implementing this on a really high level for our agents and for the clients that you guys are having, that you're representing. So it was a fun conversation. And when I tell you that it was not, you know, straightforward black and white, I mean, we had conversations around, okay, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? How can we make sure that this is easier for you to present, you know, and making sure this is a great tool for you to have, as well as a, you know, okay, this is a required document that we have to sign now. So buyer representation agreements, as of July, we are going to start implementing these in our market center, and making sure that this is something that we actually require for all of our agents to use with your buyers. So that is why it's really important to start having these conversations now. The nice thing is we do have the new buyer representation agreement that we're rolling out by the end of the week. So theoretically, you can start practicing with this and using this with your clients that you have right now before it actually becomes mandatory as well. So that's just a little FYI that's coming your way. You guys can check that out when we get it. But I wanted to kind of start with, you know, why are these actually important for us to be using, aside from the fact that it's required? Can I just get someone to unmute and tell me, if you've used a buyer representation agreement, what is it about it that you use it and why do you use it? Why is it important for your business? This is the fun interaction part. So chime in. And there's a couple of you guys on here that have used it before, so.
Hi, this is Allison. I treat my buyers the same way I treat my listers. I would not market a home. I would not list a home without an agreement. I present the information the same way. This is how real estate is conducted. I hardly ever get any pushback at all.
Okay, nice. That's great. And I love that you treat your buyers the same as you treat your sellers. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all in a business, right? So using this and actually being a business owner, I think that's really the mindset shift for these, right? So anyone else use these for their clients?
Yeah, I think, you know, I totally agree with Allison, but I think, you know, on a simple level, I just always explain it that like, we're signing this agreement because I'm committed to you and you're committed to me, you know, and keeping it simple like that is a great way to kind of start the conversation.
Absolutely. Anyone else? Awesome. So I will tell you some from my experience too, same thing like Amanda just said, you know, it's a commitment to work with each other. You know, at the end of the day, when you're working with someone and we do all the things that we do as agents, you know, we're driving all over town, we're, you know, scheduling showings, we're missing something maybe for our family, you know, we're making their priority our priority and helping them find a house. And at the end of the day, it's not as scary as a lot of people think that it is to use a buyer representation agreement. I think a lot of us think that, well, I know my buyers are loyal. I don't have to have them sign this. I don't need to do this. And maybe you're right. I mean, you may not have to do it, and that's totally okay. But what I found is that what I really like about using the buyer representation agreement is that conversation that I get to have. And it's forcing that conversation and the transparency up front with your clients. When you can say, hey, this is how this process is going to work. Here are the things that I'm going to do for you as a buyer's agent. And here are the things that I'm going to have you do as a buyer, you know, and making sure that you can come to terms with your client literally in the very beginning of the process, getting that signed up front. What it does is it sets the expectations in the beginning of the transaction for you, or in the beginning of the process of helping them as a buyer. And what it can do is it eliminates some of the, you know, well, I didn't know that, or, well, I wasn't aware of that, or, you know, the what ifs, you know, like there's always the question of, well, what if I do find a for sale by owner and they're not willing to pay your commission? What happens then? And can I still have representation? Do I need to pay you? What does this look like? You know, and as much as it might be, you know, harder conversations up front, it's also good conversations to have up front, because and when or if that ever happens, you know that that buyer is going to come directly to you and say, hey, you know, I found this for sale by owner. Can you reach out to them, find out if they're willing to pay your fee or whatever that looks like, and negotiate whatever, you know, see what's going on with that. And then I want to check it out. And when you set those expectations and kind of give them a roadmap of, hey, if this happens, then this happens in the very beginning, then there's no room for that, you know, gray area of nobody knows what to do. And it becomes this really weird dynamic between you and your buyers. I remember the first time, I mean, I was in my first year of real estate and I had a buyer client that I was working with, and it was a for sale by owner. And this was before I was using buyer representation agreements, before I even had a conversation around how I got paid. You know, it's like when you're brand new, you're kind of nervous of having any extra conversations other than, okay, great, we got it under contract. And what happened was in the very beginning, the seller, who was a first sale by owner, agreed to pay a 3% commission. Great, awesome. Verbally, I had nothing in writing with them. Then once we got the contract signed, and it didn't have it in the contract because, or before we actually signed it, she was like, no, I'm not going to pay your commission. I'm going to only pay 1%. The buyers can pay the extra 2%. You're representing them. So all of a sudden, I thought that I had this all handled without having to ever go to my buyers. And then when we're ready to write the offer, then all of a sudden I had to say, hey guys, by the way, the seller just basically, retracted what she said she was going to do. And can you pay my commission? Do you know how awkward that is? Like, it's so uncomfortable to have that conversation in the process, at that point in time. And there was no like, well, what should this look like? Or how can this look like? We also have a commission agreement with the seller that we can get signed up front for sale by owners, just so you know that too. So you don't have to ever go through this process again. Or so I didn't have to again. But at the end of the day, that conversation being had mid-process when they're not aware of that being an option or a potential at all is a very awkward and uncomfortable conversation to have mid-process. And what I found is that the sooner you have it, the less scary it's going to be, and do we think that all of the buyer commissions are going to go away? No. Do we think that every agent is going to start listing their houses with no buyer compensation at all for the agents? No. Do we think that there's a chance that that might happen some, and we're going to see some agents taking advantage of that? Yes. So it's just a matter of having the conversation with them up front, being transparent, having a conversation around, hey, this is a potential. Let's figure out how we can work through this now and see what this, scenario can look like. Just to be sure, worst case scenario, we have a plan. And that's really what that conversation is going to be like. It doesn't have to be, hey, by the way, you have to pay my buyer's fee, right? Like you have to pay me to represent you. So again, we don't know until these things are going to start to change how it's going to actually impact our, the listings and how it's going to impact our compensation. So the sooner we can just get comfortable with that conversation up front with our clients, the better. Now, this is the cool part. It can be scary to talk to a buyer if you've never, ever had a buyer representation agreement signed before, and also say, here's my value, but I'm not really sure how to communicate that value to you, right? Like, I know my value as a buyer's agent, but I'm not sure how to communicate that to you. What we've done with this buyer representation agreement, guys, is we've actually written in the very first page, assistance to you as a buyer. There are bullet points of the things that we do on a regular basis for our buyer clients. So if you have never, ever had to talk to your buyers about what your value proposition is, and you've never had this conversation around it, which I'm guessing most of you do, most of you have had this conversation to some extent. We're all in the business and we're all obviously getting buyers to work with us, right? So we're showing our value somehow. But if you're scared of this for the first time and you want to use it, we are literally making it easy for you to say, here is my value to you as a buyer's agent. And it is spelled out. You could literally read it line by line and tell your buyers what it's going to be. And so that's going to make it a lot easier for you as a buyer's agent to be able to present what your value is. Now, do I encourage you to also have your own process and your own, value proposition as a buyer's agent? Absolutely. This is going to be, we didn't want to put anyone in a specific, you have to do these things. Maybe this is something that you don't do with your buyers. We want to make sure that it was at least, fair for everyone, something that everyone is going to be doing on a high level, no matter what, with your buyers. But it is a starting point for you. So the first time that you use this, if you just use this and nothing else, it's going to create the conversation for you. You don't have to think about, how am I going to have this conversation? So I did want to kind of go over what the buyer representation agreement is going to have in it. I'm not going to go through it line by line so that you guys are aware. We're going to have a ton of trainings, a ton of videos going out, all kinds of education for you guys to be able to understand this buyer representation agreement on a really high level. And we're also going to have some kind of workshops back and forth of how we're going to talk through this, how we're going to, put this together, that kind of thing, coming up with our value propositions together. How can we make sure that we're having conversations around what's going to make you successful as a buyer's agent? Okay. So some of the things that you're going to see in the buyer rep agreement when it's coming out, and just so you guys are aware of it, these are the main things that I think are the most important to you so that you can start to process this. And then when you look at it, when it does get rolled out by the end of the week, you can be like, oh, that's what Kelsey was talking about. Okay. So the first thing that's going to be in there that you're going to see, like I talked about, is the assistance to the buyers. And that is going to be spelling out what you do as a buyer's agent for every single one of your buyers. Okay. The second thing in there is going to be the duties of the buyers. So this is where, like Amanda was saying, like Allison was saying, this is where you're going to be able to say, hey, I have my duties to you as a buyer's agent. And I also have expectations of you as a buyer. This is where you get to have that transparent conversation around what are our responsibilities and what is our commitment to each other. You know, no seller is going to go on the market, like Allison said, without a signed listing agreement. We're not going to put our time and our money and our effort into listing their property if we don't have a commitment from them that they actually want to sell their house, right? So if you think about that on the opposite with a buyer, think about it the exact same way. You're not going to get in your car, schedule showings, and take your time away from your family to show someone a house and then have them say, yeah, I was really not completely interested. I don't think I'm really ready to buy a house right now. I was just kind of curious what the process would be like. But thank you so much for the past 6 months of your time, right? Like, yeah, that can happen if something changes, life changes happen. But if you can work through that conversation up front and say, hey, this is a commitment for both of us that I'm going to do these things and you're also going to do these things, right? Does that make sense? So that's something that just kind of, again, I think it's really, really helpful that we have that right there in the very beginning on the first page. This is what this is. It's setting the expectation. It's just getting it out in the open that this is what this agreement is. Now, what's really cool is that it does also have a ton of the disclosures that you see, you know, on the purchase agreement and different places like that too. It's going to actually have some of those disclosures up front so that we make sure that we get those out of the way. So, you know, things like property condition. We can tell them up front, hey, when we're going and seeing houses, do you understand that the condition is as is? Not saying we can't negotiate after inspections, but if you see something that is clearly a defect to the home, we're not going to then go and ask for that after the inspection. You know, that we're walking through homes and we're doing our due diligence up front, you know, and you can have that conversation with them in the beginning. If anything, this is creating a roadmap for your buyer consultation. Like this could actually be your buyer consultation. And then you have a list of preferred vendors and you're off and you're running to the races, right? Like this is going to have all that stuff for you already typed into the document. So there's a lot of those kind of FYIs, a lot of those disclosures that are going to be in there that you've seen a million times. So nothing scary there, not an issue at all. If you've written a contract and explained it one time, you're going to be fine. That's not a big deal. The other thing that you're going to see in there, and this is a big one, is the compensation breakdown. So this is where it's important for us to start to get comfortable around this conversation now, because again, when we start requiring this come July, it's going to be something where at that point in time, you have no choice but to have this conversation, right? Like as these NAR changes are coming around and as, you know, as a brokerage, as you see all these other people that are using this, you know, it's not going to all of a sudden be, oh, if I decide that I want to use it, I can use it. I don't have to use it. No, this is something that's going to be required. So let's get comfortable around this conversation. Compensation, probably one of the most challenging conversations that we can have around, you know, working with our buyers, right? How do I tell my buyer, yeah, I will actually have to have you come up with your down payment and your closing costs and pay me 3%. That seems like a lot of money, right? And that's what this is in here. It's the what if, it's the worst case scenario. If a seller is not willing to pay my fee, this is what my fee is. Now, here's the thing. Would you want to do all of that work for that buyer, get them under contract, all these different things, and then on closing day find out that you're not getting paid anything? No. Right? Like we don't work for free and we know that, but what we just need to do is we need to start to act as a business owner and have this conversation in an intelligent way and be able to be confident in saying, hey, this is just how this works. You know, like at the end of the day, I'm not allowed to work for free. So this is what this is going to look like. Now, does this mean that you're going to have to come up with that 3% out of pocket in cash? No. Are there other options that we can talk about getting creative with how we can get this covered? Absolutely. And that's where at the end of this month, you'll see we're doing a training with Ohio Real and with Cross Country specifically about how we can get this, you know, built into the mortgage. How can we get this put into the settlement statement, you know, as a cost from the seller? What is this going to look like? You know, there are ways to get creative. At the end of the day, us as realtors, I always say our main job is how to be problem solvers, right? Like that is literally what we do is we solve problems typically throughout the entire process. Yeah. So this is another situation where we're just going to have to figure out how can we solve this problem for our buyers? Say you have a first-time home buyer who can't afford an extra 3%. You know, they need that, you know, they need every penny that they're going to get. How can we do a workaround with the seller? Maybe make the seller think that they're not paying the commission, they're paying their closing costs. Great, 3% to the buyer's closing costs. Awesome. Okay, now buyer pays 3% to agent. Okay, all of a sudden, the buyer's paying it, the seller's actually paying it, right? So that's where you can start to think about how we can get creative with these things. And I think that every one of these conversations is going to look a little bit different for your buyers, but I think that it's going to be something where we can work through this no matter what situation your buyer is in, we'll have that conversation and we'll work through it. And if you have that level of confidence and I guess understanding with your buyers, I think that they're going to feel as comfortable as you feel. You know, at the end of the day, if you're uncomfortable and you're not really sure how that can be worked in, then that's going to be something that they're going to feel. That'll reflect on how they feel, right? So if you're confident, you're like, listen, guys, like we'll work through it. We'll find a way to make sure that this is okay. You know, worst case scenario, this is the case. We have that conversation. We'll work something out. We'll figure it out. You know, like at the end of the day, like it's not something that you're most likely going to have to do, but we would just want to have this conversation around it first. Does that make sense? Awesome. So I want to kind of open this up today as well for, you know, hearing from you guys, what are some of the questions that you're having? Because what we're going to do in the next 2 weeks for our in-person sales meetings is we're actually going to do a role play and an interview with some agents who use these buyer representation agreements at a high level, and they have for years. So what I would recommend for you guys is I would say, come to one of those sales meetings as well. Typically, we don't say you need to come to 2 sales meetings in a month, but I think that for this specific scenario, if you can make it work in your calendar and go to one of those, I think it's going to be a really, really great value add for you to hear how other agents are having these conversations with their buyers. And I'm going to ask them some of those hard conversations or some of those hard questions that are in all of our brains, right? Like all the things that we're nervous about, all the things that we're not really sure of. We'll put a poll out on our Facebook group as well as far as what questions do you have for them. But I just want to kind of hear from you guys, like what is going through your mind right now? Anyone?
Hi, this is Tammy Pofall.
Hi, Tammy.
So a question that went through my mind is that I could see a buyer saying, well, I'm not going to use a buyer's agent. I'm just going to go directly to the selling agent. And then I won't have to pay the buyer's fee.
Yep.
So I would like to discuss the talk around on that. I mean, I understand like, well, you're not represented, but that, you know, when someone's looking at whatever, 7,000, 10,000, whatever dollars, they're like, that's fine. I'll be unrepresented because I'm not paying $7,000.
Yep. Perfect.
Also,
Writing down your question.
to piggyback off of that, I had a couple of investors interested. So I get the call. They initially say they want a buyer to work with them. I discussed the representation agreement, and then they disappear. So I don't know, if that's something that's happening, what the previous person just said, that they prefer to go through the seller versus having the buyer agreement. So I'm just trying to see how to work around the investor, because I'm getting more so investors calling me.
Okay.
Yeah, I know a question came up a few weeks ago about with a buyer representation agreement, could you attach it to certain properties? Like we're going to go out and see these 5 houses, and you do like an addendum that's specific to those properties if someone's hesitant about like signing it overall. I'd love to see what that would look like.
Okay.
And then just a logistical question, if we have a couple active buyer agent agreements right now, should we have them sign this new one when it rolls out?
So I think what you have signed right now is probably going to be okay. If you are still working with those buyers come July, I will get with the office and find out, like, is there going to be a start date? So any new buyer that you start working with come July 1st, is that when we're going to start to require it? Or is it going to be any closing after July 1st? So if that's the case, maybe we'll have to get those re-signed, but most likely I'm going to say it's probably going to be like a start date. So I'll clarify on that and let you know. That's a great question.
Okay, thank you.
Then I have a question too. What if you represent the buyer and also they want you to sell their house? Are we going to have them pay 2 commissions?
So I think that I'll answer that question anyways. No matter what, they're always paying 2 commissions. So if you're selling them a house or you're selling their house, they're going to be selling that And then you're saying that also then going and buying a house. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, okay. And I think that that's also something that we're going to have the real conversation around, because as we are listing houses, right? Like this is not just going to be a buyer conversation. We actually have it on our docket for like, what is the next step after you talk through the buyer rep agreement? Like, how does this impact our sellers, right? Because at the end of the day, our sellers then also have to make decisions around this new law, like what is this going to look like for us as far as, are we offering a buyer compensation agreement or buyer compensation? And what does that compensation look like? And you as an agent have to be able to show the value of the buyer's agent, and explain to them the same exact thing you're explaining to your buyers. Why is it valuable for us to offer a compensation to the buyer's agent? And that's a real easy conversation when they're thinking of, okay, well, I might have to pay for my own, fee on the buying side. Well, that's kind of a bummer. I'm going to pay it on the listing side and then I have to pay it on the buying side too. And that's where it's like, okay, but do you want another buyer to have to go through that as well? And it's a numbers game at that point in time. I mean, that's where this conversation becomes a little more simple when you start to think about numbers, like looking at comps and things like that. Like, okay, if we're not offering it, then the price of the house is going to come down, because if then the buyer's paying for it, they're paying on top of it. So then we have to make sure that that's included in the price of the house. We can't be greedy sellers. We can't be greedy listing agents and say, okay, we're going to do a 3%, or a 2% listing agreement fee. And then we're also going to try to sell it for top dollar and make the buyer pay on top of that. That means that the buyer is then paying twice, right? So that's where we have to be really aware of the numbers and start to educate ourselves around the numbers in that conversation. It's going to make our lives a little more complicated for a little while, having these conversations. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to help us all fine tune our craft and having those really high level conversations with the seller or with your buyer, right? So again, I think that the more that we get comfortable with these conversations and we think about, these scenarios of, okay, well, if we're not offering this compensation, well, then you're still taking a hit. It's just on the price then. So why not go ahead and include it, get as many buyers as we can, make it easier for those buyers to come and give you as much as they can for the house, maybe get better offers because they're not also coming out of pocket for the buyer agent fee, right? So that's where you can kind of have those conversations around, well, here are your options. This is what it's going to look like. What makes the most sense? Most likely what's going to make the most sense is to offer the compensation, right? Like if we just present it that way and we explain it to them, they're going to make an intelligent decision from there, right? So,
Kelsey, on that topic, just really quick.
Yeah.
So like, how do you weigh that with the fiduciary responsibility that we weigh with the seller of, hey, it's in our best interest to get you the most amount of money. And then we have a buyer, say, that wants to buy your house, or say someone on our team is representing a buyer that wants to buy your house, and the buyer doesn't want to pay, so then it's on the seller, and you're weighing how much do you charge your seller at that point, because obviously you want them to make the most amount of money, but it's kind of like that, you have, oh, you're only going to pay me 3%. The buyer's like, I'm not paying you at all, and then is the seller then paying you for that buyer's commission, even though it's your responsibility to get the seller the most amount of money? How do you weigh that, balance, I guess,
Yeah. I mean, I think that Eddie comes down to, really what does that offer look like and what is in the seller's best interest from a whole, because at the end of the day, if it's the only offer they have on the table, it's the same as a buyer saying, I want you to pay my closing costs, right? Like if you look at it like that, like it's just a different type of concession that we're looking at for the sellers. So I think that we have to look at, okay, is this the only offer that we're working with here? And we want to make sure that you're moving forward to sell your house. So having that conversation with the sellers around, do we want to let this offer go because of a 3% concession, which may be the same as I'm asking a 3%, concession on their closing costs. And I think, again, at the end of the day, everything's negotiable, right? So you can also say, just like you would say with closing costs, like, hey, like we'll pay the 3%, but you have to come above the asking price by 3% to match that, to make that work, and I think that's where the negotiations come in. It's going to be the similar as, a buyer asking for closing costs, 3%, or we'll do 2%, but you have to come up 2%. Like if you want the full 3%, you can get it, but you're coming up another $8,000 to get that kind of a thing.
Right.
So, I agree with, I think that it's the fiduciary aspect of it is really going to come down to, negotiating with your seller and making sure that you're giving them all the negotiable options is what it comes down to. Nothing is going to be set in stone anymore. That's the thing that makes this all a little bit more complicated and a little less like straightforward.
Hey,
But again,
Kelsey,
we'll work through it.
also to jump in on what Eddie said about that, you know, I think like, when you're going into a listing appointment, we need to make sure we educate our sellers, obviously. But if you're saying, if you go to your seller and you say, okay, I will represent you, we're charging 6%. That's what the commission charges. They don't really need to know if they're accepting of that. They don't really need to know how much we're giving our buyer's agent, right?
They do.
Like, well, they do. What I'm saying is that we break it down. You know what I'm saying? We're like, let's, you know, hey, we're charging 6% and that's going to be split between us and the buyers. What I don't ever, in the 12 years I've been doing this, I've never had a conversation of, we're going to give the buyers X amount of dollars. We're charging 6%. This is what we're charging between me and the buyer's agent. We're charging 6%, and everybody's fine with that.
Yeah.
Fine with that.
But
Well, and-
Wendy,
But now
don't
it's
they
on the
question
listing
it?
agreement.
What's that?
Don't they question it when they get their Alta statement? It's broken down on the Alta statement, so they find out eventually.
I work, obviously, you know, I give commission as the seller myself, but I've never had that question asked to me. I've never had a seller go, what is this? Why is it split this way? Never in 12 years. Now, a lot of you have worked with a lot more independent sellers because a lot of the times I'm the seller. But I just need, I will need clarification on that because I have never talked to them about exactly what the buyer is getting or the,
And I think that that's where all this NAR stuff started.
Wendy, it is on our listing agreement though.
It's on our listing
I'm
agreement
just saying
now,
that no
right?
one has ever questioned that for me.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
That's all I'm saying. I'm just saying, and I'm someone who's been in the business a long time. I understand that you guys have worked more with retail clients than me. I'm just saying that I have never had anyone say, why are we giving the buyer's agent this amount? And why are you getting this amount? I've never had it come up. That's all I'm saying. I'm just
And
saying.
I think that's, Wendy, I appreciate you saying that because I think that's really what people need to know too, is that this is not as hard of a conversation as what I think we're going to think that it is.
Sure.
I think that what it comes down to is us understanding how to have the conversation when a client is going to start to challenge this. Because I had a listing appointment in February, I want to say, and this was when all this stuff was starting to come about, and this was for a $650,000 listing. I met with them a year ago, like everything was worked out. We had already talked about, you know, everything, you know, minus the exact list price, but like they already had their estimated net, all that kind of stuff. And in this just casual walkthrough of me kind of checking on things, you know, giving them opinions on stuff, the husband was asking me, you know, very, very interesting kind of like, okay, you're fishing for something here, questions. And he kept asking me, like, he was like, so like, how does the commission work? And I was like, okay, this is an odd question. Like, we've talked about this. His ex-wife was a realtor. Like, I know he knows. So I was like, okay. And so then I was like, are you asking me because of the NAR stuff going on right now? He's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, so here's how it works. This is what it is. I said, and are you kind of wondering, does it make sense to pay a buyer's agent or not? And he was like, yeah. So then we just had that conversation and I explained it to him and I was like, listen, at the end of the day, this is what it is. It's your choice what you're going to do with this, you know? And he was like, well, yeah, I mean, I'm going to pay a buyer's agent. Like, I'm not going to cut the buyer's agent out of it. Like, I was just curious as to like what you would say for that. So I think we're going to have some people that are going to be more aware of it. And then we're going to have some people who are not aware of it at all. I mean, how many times have we had a first-time home buyer ask us, well, how do I pay you? Right? How do you get paid? Like, they don't know, you know? So I think that, you know, for some buyers, this is not going to be anything weird. They're just going to know this as what it is.
I'm just trying to point out that this is going to, especially new agents too. But even, you know, people that have been around a little bit like me, I don't want to be ignorant about this, right? Because I don't work with a ton of buyers, but I'm just telling you that in my experience, this is what's happened. And I think it'd be beneficial for us to get some sort of chat scenario, just something where hey, this is a great way to explain what this means, and this is why it's beneficial to pay a buyer representative. I think that we definitely, before this thing starts hitting the, the market, really hitting the market. I mean, it already has in a way, but we need scenarios and things that we like, a little cheat sheet, like I said in the chat, because I even need it, right? Because I mean, I'm just telling you that this is something that I really need some guidance on myself.
Absolutely. And
So-
listen, I mean,
Hey,
Wendy,
Chelsea?
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Who's that?
That's me. Yeah, Eddie.
Okay.
Is there anything that stops us from still just saying, hey, nothing's different, but just putting what we're going to pay the commission in showing time, so that when you schedule it, you get like in the like the agent comments, it just says you're going to get 3% there.
Yeah.
Because isn't it a lot of it is like they don't want people to be motivated to go show a house based on what you're going to get paid.
Correct.
And that if you're just notified, like once you schedule a house, like you're like, oh, I'm going to show it, and then you're notified what you're going to get paid. Isn't that
Correct.
like
So
acceptable?
I actually had that exact same question, Eddie, which is funny.
Yeah.
Our minds went the same direction on that.
Yeah.
And what it sounds like, because we don't know until these things start to change, like what we're actually going to be able to do and how we're going to be able to do it. So there's still going to be more development on this for sure. But when I asked Andrew Ginter about this, I was like, well, couldn't we just do this? And he was like, it's anything attached to the MLS, which the showing time is attached to the MLS. So it most likely will not be allowed in the showing time. How we're going to explain is going to be interesting. Like how we're going to, tell the buyer's agents how, like what we're compensating them is going to be an interesting, we'll work through that once we kind of figure things out a little bit more. We just want to make sure that you feel prepared and educated, and that you have, again, like Wendy was saying, that you have the scripting, that you have the knowledge, you have the resources to have these conversations on a high level and feel comfortable with this before it is something that is going to be a mandatory thing or something that is, across the board, everyone has to do it kind of a thing. So that's really what these conversations are going to be around. I appreciate all of your guys' feedback. This is super, super helpful for me. And it's funny because a lot of these questions were questions I had already kind of come up with my own as far as like things that I would think of as an agent. And at the end of the day, like we will work through this. Like this is not something that we want to put out there as a fear tactic of like, make sure you know how to do this. And if you don't, like, you're not going to be able to be in the business in a year. Like none of that is the case. Like if you look back at like anyone who's been in the business for a little bit of time, what we went through during COVID in 2020, when we weren't sure if we were able to even leave our house and show a house and list a house, like to me, that was scarier than any of this, because we literally had no idea if we were going to be able to actually do our business day to day. Like that was a lot more challenging. And I think that if you've been in the business longer than that time, like you've seen other things that have happened and other changes that have happened come our way. This is just one of those, changes that we're going to all look at, process, work through, and start to implement as another part of our business. It's just going to change how we operate our business in a different way. So we're here to help you through that transition no matter what at the end of the day. So don't be nervous of this. Again, just come to the trainings, come to the sales meetings, get as much knowledge around this as you can. There's a lot of scripting already out there. Like if you guys follow Jeff Glover, like he's already been putting out scripting around this, with the NAR, questions, things like that. Like there's all kinds of resources that are already out there. And then we're also going to be sharing resources for you as well. So, I think I see Carol, did you have your hand raised on purpose?
I did. I
Okay.
did. I think the biggest fear for a lot of agents, me personally, I've been doing buyer's agreements probably as long as I've been in real estate. And I think, and that's why it's important to have that consultation up front. And a buyer will be hesitant, but when you're building a relationship, I let them pretty much know we can do it for today. We do it for today. If you decide this is not a good fit and we're not good to work together. And I had that happen, to push back. But then once we met, we walked through the house and I talked to him. He felt confident in signing it. So I have my assistant send it over. They can read it before we meet, just to get them to understand. And then we talk about it in detail up front. So I think the big thing is doing it. If you haven't done it and you're afraid to do it, is just, fear is false evidence appearing real. So just do it.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that that's a great point. I think that, you know, the more you can be upfront about this and the more you can have these conversations in the beginning, that transparency, you know, show your value, know your value, you know, that's the first step. I mean, the first time you had to walk through a listing and show your value as a listing agent, it's the same thing, right, guys? Like, it used to be that buyers felt more comfortable for a lot of agents in the beginning, and sellers were the scary ones. So now we're just looking at how can we show our value as a buyer's agent like we can as a listing agent. Ashley, I see your hand is up.
Yes. So my question is, with the buyer representation agreement in the picture, are we also doing a new listing agreement with the new compensation?
So we're working through the buyer representation agreement first. I am not sure if we're going to be updating our listing agreement. So if that's the case, we will definitely let you guys know. So right now we're just focusing on the buyer agreement because that's obviously biggest priority at the moment.
Okay, so because I'm just curious how that's, because right now it's at 7%, right?
Yes, and that's something that you can always cross through and update if you want to. So that's never going to be set in stone either.
All right, cool.
Yep. And I just saw that there are lots of questions in the chat as well. So we'll get that chat from you guys too. I didn't see them until just now. So we'll look through that chat, see if there's other questions you guys had, and make sure we're looking at this as well. So we are at, let's see what time it is. It is 10:27. I think we've got time for one more question if anyone has any other questions.
Okay, I do want to make a comment, and
Yeah.
hope I'll say this correctly, but when it comes to listing agreements, I mean, my feeling, I don't think we should ever change what our commission is. You know, as far as you charge a 6 or 7%, that should be what it's going to be. But outside of that, is it possible that we could create some kind of broker to broker agreement to compensate a buyer's agent outside of having to send it through escrow or and also placing it in the MLS? Is there some way that they can contact us and say, hey, this is what we're offering to a buyer's agent, and it doesn't have to necessarily touch the MLS or have to go through escrow, and we compensate the other brokers directly?
That's a great question. I don't have the answer for you, but that's a great question. Thanks, John. So you're kind of saying like compensate through KWGM in a sense.
Like say if it's a Howard Hanna agent, you know, and the commissions come in, they're paying Keller Williams. We agreed to go ahead and pay Howard Hanna a specific amount of the commission, and whatever it might be. We cut the check directly to Howard Hanna. That way there's no issue with it going to the closing disclosure or anything like that. It's just compensation to Keller Williams. Then you cut all of that out about the seller saying, hey, I've had that happen before. You know, why I'm paying them a commission or anything like that. Like, no, it's still 6% or 7% that was charged to you. We just split it in half. But if they just see it came directly to Keller Williams and then we pay the other broker, Keller Williams pay the other broker directly, you know, is that possible?
Yep. I gotcha. Okay. No, that's a great question. And these are all great questions that, like, some of these things we're going to work through, you know, and nobody, literally nobody in all of the United States right now knows how this is going to work exactly, right? Like, this is not a KWGM thing that we're doing and we're rolling this out and it's new for us. Like, this is everyone across the board. So I think we're going to see a lot of changes, and I think we're going to see, you know, some nuances to this. We're going to work through some of the kinks and the hurdles and the, you know, the things over the next 6 months. And by this time next year, this is going to be something that's like, oh yeah, remember when, right? So no, that's a great question, John, and I really appreciate it. I do see one other question in the chat that I'm going to go ahead and acknowledge. Allison asked, you know, what happens if the buyer's agreement, or the buyer agreement compensation is 3% with your buyer, and then the listing compensation is a 3/2%. So in that scenario, what's going to happen is the buyer is going to pay that additional 1% on the remainder balance. And that's where that conversation is. So again, it's, you know, we're going to go to the seller to get them to pay as much as we can get them to pay. And then the buyer is going to pay the difference. Now, that's not saying that you can't try to negotiate that difference with the seller. Just because that's what they're offering doesn't mean you can't also try to negotiate something different. But at the end of the day, if the seller is not paying that commission, then we are going to have that, that compensated by the buyer directly. So hopefully that answers your question. And then, yeah, Julia said document will be live this week. So we will have tons and tons of programming and trainings and conversations all around this. So this is just the start of it. Again, I would encourage you guys to come to the sales meeting that you can next week or the week after, and either River is next week or Pepper Pike is the last one. So come to these. The more that you guys are comfortable around this, the better you're going to be for your business and for your clients moving forward. So thank you guys. And I'm going to go ahead and let you go. Have a great week.